welcome to the community. We are so glad that you found us. This is a place where real parents come to talk about real stuff. Not perfect family scripts, no Instagram highlight reels, just honest conversations about navigating the world. Beautiful, sometimes completely baffling journey of raising tweens and teens. And today, oh yeah, today we're getting into something I know every single one of you has wrestled with. How do you balance structure with freedom as your kids grow up? Like how tight do you hold the reins and when do you finally let them run? With me today is my good friend RJ, a guy who actually has raised two kids all the way from adulthood. And yes, of course, he has some great stories to share with us, as always, like the kind of stories that make you feel so much better about your own parenting. So, hey, RJ, what's up today?
I'm good, Curtis, but you make me sound like some sort of cautionary tale, right? Like I have to come with a warning or something. I prefer to think of myself as a living case study.
I love it. Living case study. That maybe could be for next week, maybe. I don't know. Okay, RJ. So just let's set the scene for our listeners. Your two kids, Josh and Amanda, they're adults now. But I know were some moments along the way that where this exact question, structure versus freedom, came up, right? In real ways. Before we get into it, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
First thing, honestly, of course, is the car, right?
Hmm.
Josh turned 16 and all of a sudden he wants to borrow the car on a Friday night. And
Hmm.
I'm standing there thinking, do I hand over the keys, right? Do I say no? Do I negotiate this? I have no idea, right? Every parent has to go through it at some point. Their kids get to
Right.
that age where they're going to start driving, but there's no manual for that.
That's right. Yeah, I remember those days when I was a kid asking for keys.
Right,
And yeah, and there's no app for that either these days, you know? So if they make an app for that, how to handle your kids about driving.
right.
But you can track them though. There's a tracking device for them. So anyway, that's exactly where we're going to go today because I think a lot of parents are stuck in that exact moment, that in between the place where your kid is pushing for more independence and you're not sure how to give it to them.
Hmm.
All right, so let's get into it, RJ.
Okay.
So real talk here today. Why is this so hard? Like why can't I just pick a lane? And I think the answer is because the lane keeps moving. What worked when you were a kid was then doesn't work today. What worked what worked at 14 may not work as well. They're rolling their eyes at 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 16, and they're supposed when that's what's supposed to happen. That's healthy, but it doesn't feel great in the moment, right?
Right. Truly doesn't. Right. And I think that's what made it so hard was that I was trying to parent the moment instead of parenting the direction. Right. If that makes
Right.
any sense. Like I'd react to whatever was happening right in front of me without thinking about where I was trying to take them long term. And I think that's the key there.
Right on, Jay. That's really good. Parenting the moment versus parenting the direction. I want our listeners to sit with that for a second because I think what happened is when we only react to the moment, we either clamp down too tight or out of fear, or we give in too easily, just to avoid the conflict. Neither one is really strategy. It's just surviving.
Yeah, and listen, I'm guilty. I've done both, right? Sometimes in the same day, right?
Right.
Amanda, especially, she had this way of making a case for herself that honestly was so convincing. I'd say yes and then walk away, go, wait, did I just get played? You know, like,
Yeah. I see that. This is why I love having RJ here because he's lived it. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually is happening developmentally because I think when you understand why your kid is pushing independence, it changes how you respond.
mhm,
So suppose so here's what actually research tells us. And this is really important. Teen and tweens are supposed to push for autonomy. It's not defiance, it's not development. Their brains are literally being rewired to help them become more independent adults.
mhm.
The prefrontal cortex, the part of that handles the decision making impulse control, is still developing all the way into their mid 20s. So when your 13-year-old makes a decision that makes zero sense to you, the brain is actually in a testing phase. They need low stakes experiences where they can make more choices, sometimes mess up, and then they can also recover from those mistakes, right?
Yeah, that's a nice reframe, right? Because I remember when Josh was about 13, he managed to
Hmm.
He wanted to manage his own schedule for homework, right? And every instinct I had was like, no, you need to stay on top of this, right? Um,
Right.
but I let him try it, and he bombed the first week, of course, right?
Hmm.
But then something shifted, which was pretty amazing.
So what happened then?
So he asked me for help, right?
Right.
On his own. He came to me and said, look, Rob, I think I need a system. And that was one of the best parenting moments I've ever had
Oh,
because
fantastic.
I didn't fix it, right? Because I got out of the way long enough for Joshua to feel like the problem, like allow him to feel the problem,
Hmm.
understand the problem, and realize he needed a solution.
Man, okay. Call. Can we just sit with that for a second? RJ let his kid struggle on purpose with intention, and the kid developed self awareness. That's the goal. Maybe it was intentional or not, we're not sure, but that's what science is telling us. That is what we're aiming for. Not a perfectly defined obedient teenager, a teenager who is building the skills to manage themselves. All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back with framework. We're going to give something actually you can do this week. So, so this is like a ad, I guess. Also, this podcast is also a newsletter. You can join at the parentsupportcircle.com. If you want to check that out, please do so. All right, moving forward here. All right, guys. We're going to talk about the next part of structure and balance and freedom as your kid grows. I want you to give something concrete. I call it structure freedom. And it's not a magical formula, it's more of a mindset shift with some practical moves behind it. All right, so here's the core idea of it. Structure is not opposite of freedom. Structure is what makes freedom safe. Think about a playground. You know what makes the playground a playground and not just a parking lot? The fence. The fence is where there's the trap your kids get into. It's there so they can say everything inside the fence, go play, be free, figure it out. I'm right here. That's what good structure does. It creates a container and then inside that container you can expand the freedom as the trust grows.
Yes. Listen, I wish my kids, somebody told me this when my kids were younger, right? Because I think
Yep.
my version of structure was more like a cage than a fence, right? Everything was a rule, everything had a consequence, everything
Hmm.
had to remain under control. And eventually they stopped telling me things because they were afraid of my reaction, right? And I
Right.
think we have to learn again. And I think the key back goes back to what I said earlier is that we have to think of the long term. What, because we're
Right.
not trying to coach the moment, we're not trying to parent the moment, we're trying to
Right.
set them up for long term success. So if you're thinking about I need to control this, you're losing control.
Yep. That's right, RJ. I appreciate that you're being honest about that because I think a lot of parents have been there. Rules without relationships just creates distance. We talk about that a lot here. So here's the structure freedom work that has three moves, and these work whether your kid is 10 or 17. So I'll read the first one and three. You want to read the second one then, RJ?
Yeah.
So move one, set the non-negotiable and only those. Every family needs a short list of non-negotiables. These are things that are not up for debate, like safe, healthy, basic respect. The mistake most parents make is that they give too many non-negotiables, and everything is a rule. Nothing feels meaningful. Get clear on what actual bottom line is, the things that matter the most, and hold those firmly. Everything else, that's negotiation territory.
hmm Move two, earn and expand the trust ladder. So
Hmm.
freedom isn't given all at once, right? It's earned in small steps. When your kids want more independence in an area, a later curfew, their own phone talk time,
Hmm.
choosing their own friends, the conversation becomes okay, let's talk about how you want to earn that, right?
Yep.
Maybe they extended a curfew for 2 weekends. They check it when they arrive and they come home on time both nights. The following weekend, that curfew gets extended again, right? Trust is
Yep.
built in reps. It's not a one time decision, it's an ongoing relationship.
Right on, Jay. Let's go to move three. Debrief. Don't just decide. This one is underrated. After a privilege is given, whether it went well or went sideways, you debrief, not lecture. Debrief. You ask them how do you think that went? What would you do differently? And what did you learn? This is how to turn experiences into growth, and it keeps relationships open because if they know that messing up leads to a conversation that instead of punishment, they're more likely to be honest with you, which is very true because I
Mm,
found that with my daughter.
mhm.
Sometimes she likes to go and explore the city with her friend, and they were out for 3 hours yesterday. I go hunt them down. Of course, I found them. I didn't yell at her or anything, but it was all right. So she says, "Oh, I
Yeah,
understand. Like you can't be out for 3 hours. You got to check in, or at least have a phone call or something, right?"
yeah, I remember how you were feeling. I was feeling for you at the time too, because
Yep.
when your kid is missing, you don't know where they are. You don't know
Yeah,
what
for sure.
happened, and all of these thoughts that go through your mind. You know what I mean? So I felt for you at the time.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, RJ. Um, any of those land for you? Like when you
Oh,
look back
again,
at Josh and Amanda?
absolutely. Definitely move three, right? The debrief. That one hit me. That one was it was a hard lesson to learn because I was a control freak and not a control freak, but I was that rules, organization, do
Yep.
this, do that, right? Because I was the decider, I'd make a call, hand it on, and move on, right?
Right.
I didn't really ask them how they thought things went, right? I assumed I already knew. So, and then there was one time Amanda, I think she was like 15, she snuck out, not far, but just to a friend's house down the street, right? Just
Hmm.
like yours. And this is
Yep.
15, so you think they have more responsibility. But when I found out, my first instinct was to ground her, right? Which I did. But what I should have done, what I wish I had done was asked her why she felt like she needed to sneak out, right? What did she think would happen if she had just asked? Because the answer probably would have told me a lot about what our relationship was like from her side.
Yeah, for sure. All right, RJ, that's a real one. And I just want to say the fact that you can look back and say that here's what I do differently, that's the work right there. That's
Mhm.
exactly what we're doing on this show. And parents that are listening, if you have a moment like that, you're not a bad parent. You're a parent who is still learning. We all are. And if you want to leave a comment
Yeah,
or give us an explanation of what you've done, be great to see that in the comments, guys.
absolutely. And I think, listen, that's what this show is for, right? Is for you guys to learn from the lessons of others, right? We're
Yeah,
trying to show you a different way to parent. Maybe you're already doing some of these things,
yeah,
but we're just trying to show you, based on the things I and Curtis is still learning, that there's a better way to parent if we just look at
yeah.
long term. What are we trying to accomplish with our kids?
All right, let's have a little dad joke break here, RJ.
If you must.
Yep. Well, let's just finish this up. Last final stretch here. So here it is. My teenager asked me why I gave them a curfew. I said because I love you. They said if you love me, you trust me. I said if I trust you, I wouldn't need to love you that hard. I see myself out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you know what? I think love and trust go hand in hand, though.
Yep.
Like, look, we can love our kids, but I think l- when we don't give them that trust, we're loving them too much. Like
Hmm.
we're trying to still hold them tight, like they're little children, but they
Yep.
have to grow up, and we have to
That's
help them.
right. Yeah, for sure. All right, RJ. But the real talk, the joke actually was something really real underneath it. Love and trust aren't the same thing. You can't love your kid deeply and still hold firm boundaries.
Mhm.
Those two things coexist. And I think sometimes parents feel guilty of saying no, which is true. Like saying no means you don't trust them, but a limit is a lack of trust. It's part of the job. So no has to be sometimes said, right?
So true. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, look, my kids will both tell you now that the structure was actually what made them feel safe,
Hmm.
right? Amanda said a long time ago. She said, Rob, I pushed back on everything you said, but when I look back, I needed those walls, right? I needed that structure. And hearing that as a parent, that's what means everything.
Man, that's it, eh? That's the whole episode right there. We're giving them roots and wings. And sometimes those two things feel like they're not working again. They're actually working each other, but they're not. They're working together. The roots come first, and then slowly the wings.
Hmm.
Okay, before we wrap up, I always want to leave you with something that you can do. This week, not to mention next month, not when things calm down. This week, here's your challenge. Pick one. Pick one area where your kid has been pushing for more freedom. Just one. Could be screen time, could be staying out later, could be choosing their own friends, could be managing their own homework. And instead of saying yes or no, have a conversation with them. Ask them, what do you think is fair? What do you what do you need to show me to earn more of that freedom? Which is actually a really good question because they usually have good answers for these. And then actually listen. Like listen to what they're saying and don't interrupt and just don't have your own thoughts about it. And you know what? You'll find an answer that they're going to be and just enforce it. So if they say, I want more screen time, I want 4 hours on this thing, say, okay, I'll give you 4 hours. But if you if your attitude doesn't change, then we have to go back to the 2 hour mark. So then there's like, not, I don't know if there's really consequence to that, but if they're failing at something because they said they wanted this and they're not doing what they said, like the follow through, then I think it's fair enough to go back.
Yeah.
What do you think, RJ?
Yeah, no, I agree. Totally vouch for that. Like my rules, the rules my kids actually followed were the ones they helped create, right?
Oh
Not
yeah.
all of them, but the ones they had a hand in, way more buy-in. So I want to ask you, just go back for a second, if I could,
Yep.
Curtis. You, like you said, you had a situation with London this week where she wanted more freedom, basically, right?
Yep. Yep.
How did that work out? Because again, she made the choice to do it on her own. I know we talked about consequences because we've been talking about that
Yep.
lately. How did you handle this situation? What was the resolve there?
Well, so basically, she always wants more screen time, right? So then we said, hey, listen, if you do clean your room or, do this or that, like, clean up your bathroom or, just pick up after yourself. Like, if you make something to eat, put the stuff in the garbage, put the dishes in the sink. So for the most part, she'll do most of it, but then she misses parts, right?
Mm,
So say, hey, you gotta do this. And then for the most part, if we let her have the freedom, she's more willing to listen to us to do those things that she said she would do, but it's like, "Hey, do you mind finish this off? You missed this part, finish it." And for the most part,
yeah,
it's good. But then there's times where you're hard on her, and it's really difficult because she gets super angry about stuff or very frustrated because
right.
she likes the freedom. But when you take that freedom away a little bit, it seems like it's more of a problem for her
A
because she feels
pushback.
restricted. Yeah, and she doesn't like
Yep.
it. So then we just it's how it is. If you want it in it back, then you have to do your things that you promised us to do. And my big thing is to follow through on your words. If you can tell me you do something, I expect you to complete it to the best of your abilities. So if you promise us, say, hey, I'm going to clean my room today, I expect that room to be cleaned by end of the day.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
don't, say, well, then fine. Back to restrictions on your phone,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. So, Curtis, what are the takeaways people can have from today?
All right. So some of the takeaways from today is one, structure is not the enemy of freedom. It what makes freedom safe. Two, the structure, freedom network or framework, set your non-negotiable, use a trust ladder, and always debrief after. And of course, number three, when your kid pushes back, that's not defiance, that's development. Meet it with curiosity, not fear.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's the wrap on today's episode of Parent Support Circle. RJ, as always, man, you bring real talk to us and real stories. That's why we do this.
Yep. Love it, Curtis. I'd love to help in any way parents to maybe not make the same mistakes I did. Look, my
Yep.
kids are great, right? But I always feel like they could have been better because I was holding them back just a little too much, right? So this
Right.
community is something special. Parents, keep showing up. You're doing better than you think.
Awesome, guys. You heard the man. You're doing better than you think. And hey, if this today episode hit home for you, share with another parent who needs to hear it because this is how the show will grow. Parent by parent, one honest conversation at a time. If you haven't already, come join us over at parentsportcycle.com. There's a newsletter or slash blog, and there's a few free stuff in the community as well if you join. If you and if you want to go even deeper, we have a free guide. Stop getting fined. 25 questions that actually start real conversation with your kid. Grab it in the show notes, or you can message me later if you like and send that over. Parents are telling us that it has actually changed your dinner table conversation. I love hearing those
Mhm.
comments. It makes me feel good and it makes it
Absolutely.
worthwhile. All right, until next time, keep showing up, keep the conversation going, and know that you're not alone. I'm Curtis, and this is the Parent Support Circle, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks, guys.